Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our merchandising meetup. I'm your host, Roxy Kaus. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. These meetups are held quarterly, so be on the lookout for the next event happening in Q4. To share a little bit about myself, I lead our experience strategy group here at Bloomreach. My role is all about enabling e-commerce professionals to get the most out of Bloomreach and taking their merchandising strategy to the next level. I've spent the last decade in the e-commerce space, with the majority of that time being in merchandising. I'm very excited about today's topic, and no, it's a hot one, as we're all AI obsessed and trying to be a sponge and learning all that we can about AI and how it would impact our jobs as merchandisers. Before we dive into the topic, I want to pass the mic over to my co-host to do a round of intros. So Tara, let's start with you. Welcome back to the merchandising meetup. Can you introduce yourself and tell our audience how you got into merchandising?
Yeah, thanks, Roxy. And I'm definitely happy to be back. So, hi, everyone. I'm Tara. I am a senior manager in the experience strategy group at Bloomreach. I've been at Bloomreach now for about 2 years, I think. And prior to that, I was working, in merchandising for, I'd say, about 8 years. So my merchandising journey, I guess, started probably around 2013. That was a time when I would say, it was certainly my experience that the AI you were able to leverage in merchandising was, probably more or less non-existent. At the time, I remember even, basic things like how you could sort products on a category page. The only way to do it was basically to number those products manually, 1 to 1,000. So there, at the time, at least from what I could see, there was no such thing as AI driven algorithms even to power things like your category pages. Obviously, as time went on, the technology got better, the AI started to come into play. And so in terms of like the role as a merchandiser, what that meant, that changed a lot, I would say, over those 8 years. I'm sure we'll sort of get into that in more detail, throughout this session. So, for now, I'll just leave it at that and pass it over to Christine to introduce herself too.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Reyes. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Bloomreach for our Discovery product line in particular, so search, merchandising, recommendations. I've been at Bloomreach for about 2.5 years, and basically what I spend most of my time doing is talking to our customers or talking to people who are considering buying a product like Bloomreach. And just hearing like what are their pain points, what are the problems they're really trying to solve, and what do they want the technology to help them really accomplish at the end of the day. So it's very fun. I get to spend, in particular right now, a ton of time thinking about all of the different kinds of AI that are really gaining traction in the market, and how can we use them and leverage them to create really interesting and new value for our customers. So really excited to dig a little more into the topic today.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for us here for this conversation. Let's jump into our topic around how our merchandisers and commerce practitioners can maximize their merchandising potential and strategy leveraging AI. To really speak on this topic, though, I feel like we have to talk about how the merchandising role has evolved over time. And Tara alluded to that a little bit in her intro. But I want to talk through a day in the life and what that looks like for a merchandiser, and really talk through how illustrate how AI is necessary and why it's necessary to allow merchandisers to be more efficient and to scale their efforts. So Tara, can you share a little about a day in the life of a merchandiser and how you've seen this role evolve over time?
Yeah, for sure. So, again, going back to, I suppose, the early days of merchandising, it's interesting to think about where we were versus where we are now. In some ways, 10 years ago, the merchandisers, in a way had sort of like full control over the whole site experience, over everything that was happening on the site, because there really was no like automation or AI. So, as I said, when I was introducing myself, we were in a place where you had full control over the order of every single product almost on every single page because there was no other option. Another thing I remember was, having full control over each product that showed in a recommendations carousel on a product page. So, back in the day when you would be on a product page and you would see that carousel underneath that said, you may also like, in most cases, it used to be a merchandiser going in and again, manually selecting those products, 1, 2, 3 of what a customer should also like compared to that product. So there was a lot of sort of control, I guess, in that sense. But the downside to that was it just wasn't scalable. So, as a merchandisers, I suppose, have always had, this great like business knowledge, this knowledge of their customer. They've always kind of been the experts in their site and how best to trade their website. But the downside back in the day was you had all this knowledge, you had all this expertise, but you just couldn't really ever put it into practice because you were spending your day really just trying to keep the lights on, really trying to like order products one by one on a given page. And so there was no time really to think about strategy, think about how to best apply your sort of business strategies to the website. And so I feel like, the place we're in now for merchandisers is a much more exciting place because you do have, the AI, the automation to leverage, to be able to kind of do all that, a lot of the work for you in terms of like keeping the lights on, in terms of, powering, like a lot of your core pages and the core site experience. And then you're able to take the time to kind of apply your expertise and your business knowledge to sort of apply almost as a layer on top of the AI to just make sure you're sort of maximizing revenue in that sense.
Absolutely. And I just remember when I first started out as a merchandising, how, like you mentioned, there's so many different roles that rolled up to merchandising, like UX. For example, I even remember when I was trying to figure out cross-sell and upsell opportunities, and it was so manual, and it was just me minding the data to try to figure out what made sense to sell together. So it's awesome to see where we are today. And I want to pass it to Christine because I'd love for you to share more about your research findings and learnings around merchandising and its evolution.
Yeah, for sure. So almost like 2 years ago now, I did this really cool research project for Bloomreach where I interviewed a bunch of marketing, merchandising, and CRM leaders from really big e-commerce companies. And the goal of the research was I kind of just asked them to gossip about each other. Like I was asking a lot about like friction points between the teams, or, like what do you wish other teams knew about, like what's important about your job? Like how do you think about goals? Who's the most like customer centric? Things like that. So it was actually very structured. But a lot of the merchandisers in particular that I got to speak to had been in their roles for like 20 plus years. And so something they told me that was before e-commerce really took off, merchandisers were the kings of commerce. And then they had to come into this digital space and they felt really unfamiliar with the data science, with the marketing jargon. And in a lot of cases, it started to feel like they were losing their influence in the company. So I think compared to that, I think we've really come a long way from them. And definitely at Bloomreach, we always try to make sure that merchandisers have analytics and insights that are meant for their workflows and the way that they think about e-commerce. So that they're not like trying to learn tools that are really meant for like a marketer or for a different audience. But something that I've really noticed, even in the kind of questions that they ask us now, like when we're doing product research for our roadmap, they're asking a lot more about things like just like how can I do more? Like it's not so much about the table stakes. Like they're not worried about manually sorting like all the products on a page or like picking recommendations for a carousel. They're really asking for very, very fine-grained controls of how to tweak like just this little bit of the customer journey. And we actually have started using this phrase internally of like a relentless optimizer. And that's like who I guess you could say like we're inspired by to build Bloomreach for. The kind of person who isn't satisfied with a one-time revenue lift, but who just wants to keep tweaking and get that like extra 0.01% improvement in their journey wherever they can. And I really feel like for me, that epitomizes what a merchandiser is today. And that's more and more where the market is going, especially as this AI that's coming out now makes a lot of things a lot more possible that weren't possible in the past. And so one interesting evolution in efficiency through AI that I'm seeing a lot right now is actually in personalization. And I'm really interested in this area because my experience, especially from doing that research project, is that merchandisers are like the product and category experts. That's usually how they would describe themselves to me. They're the people who know product and category. And that means that that's where their thinking starts, because that's where a lot of their processes start. They're thinking about this product, this category that they need to create some improvements for and sell more. And then they're creating a plan to sell that, rather than being customer first. So I think personalization is one of those areas that really flips that around. Because if you look at something like, for instance, segment-based personalization, you kind of have to start with the customer, not the product, right? Like if you're using something like Bloomreach, you literally start with like creating your audience, creating your different segments. And then you're trusting the AI to go and pick the products for you that are going to be most relevant per query for each of those audiences. So it really flips things around. And I think it's, really the AI facilitating that change. And so far, we've seen really good results and revenue lift from that approach with our merchandising teams. So I think that that's kind of a change that we're seeing right now as well.
Awesome. And I would also like to discuss how do business really measure the effectiveness of their efforts when it comes to AI? Because I know that's a question that we get quite a bit from business leaders wanting to dip their toe into the AI space.
Yeah. So I think it's a really interesting question because I think most people will immediately go to either sales revenue or revenue per visitor as the ultimate metric for product discovery, at which I would agree, that probably is the ultimate metric. And AI can improve that. But if that's all you're focused on, I think you're actually missing a really important AI metric for merchandising, which is time savings. We've already talked a lot about efficiency already, but with Bloomreach, we've noticed that our customers on average, they spend 30 to 50% fewer hours on what I call like the mundane tasks. And so a lot of that is due to AI automatically handling the things like the synonym generation, the rule conflict resolution, so that the merchandisers don't have to be troubleshooting those issues all the time. And so that's a way to see that the AI is working all of that time that it's saving you. And then the other major area of time savings right now comes from insights. So less time spent like diagnosing and digging into things to try to figure out what you should do, and more time just spent like actually doing the things that you want to go do. So in Bloomreach, the example of that is what we call our top opportunities report. If you've ever used that, where it proactively gives you ideas for where you can make changes to improve revenue. So that's one way that AI is cutting down on that diagnosis time for you. But I really think as the AI matures, especially with the newer improvements that are possible with large language models, we're going to see a lot more time savings for merchandisers, not by replacing what you are doing today, but by making it a lot more intuitive. And so basically like making it easier for you to go from that moment of I have an idea to I have a fully validated data-backed plan. I know exactly what this idea is going to look like in practice, and I'm going to go execute it now with the click of a button. Maybe a couple clicks, but I think we're very close to like that kind of reality.
That's amazing. And Tara and myself are working with the Bloomreach practitioners day in and day out. And so we know how powerful our top opportunities report is and how it can support you drive your business so that as a merchandiser, you aren't doing those tedious tasks of identifying the right opportunities to go after. So we spoke earlier about how the merchandising role has evolved so much over time, and it brings to mind for me the 80-20 rule. So merchandisers have a lot on their plates, as we all know, and that's why we need AI to really help with automation, right? So what this means is that merchandisers should take advantage of AI 80% of the time, which leaves 20% of their attention on the tasks that require human touch to really drive big results for their business. And we know from our work in the space that a winning merchandising strategy includes both the art and the science. So I want to pass it over to you, Tara. Could you share some examples of leveraging art and science together to drive big results, either in your time as a merchandiser or working with our Bloomreach customers to do so?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, in terms of thinking about this idea of the art and science in merchandising, I think it's always really important to sort of really think through like what can the AI solve for, or what does the AI know versus like what do you know about your business and the customers. So, one, I think, really good example is always something like an end of season sale. So, in that instance, for your end of season sale, you might have, let's say a couple of like really key objectives. One obviously might be to, hit your revenue targets or your, forecast for that time period. And, in that instance, the AI can really support you there in that, typically, let's say, again, if we're just talking about the algorithms that drive the sort order on most of your pages, in most cases, again, the AI will be able to see like pretty quickly, okay, these are the products that customers are really engaging with in our end of season sale. These are the products that are driving the most revenue. So the AI will, in that instance, know to optimize those products at the top of, most pages and support your goal there in terms of like hitting your revenue forecast. Another KPI you might have for like an end of season sale is something like, we have a ton of old aged stock in our warehouse. We're sitting on huge numbers of units in that instance. And, it's actually costing us a lot of money to even just store this stock in our warehouse. So that is like something that, maybe the AI doesn't know. The AI doesn't have that insight into your business model. It doesn't know how much space all of this, essentially like dead stock, let's say, is taking up in your warehouse. That's where your kind of merchandiser knowledge comes in, or the art comes in the sense of, okay, we have a short list of the products that are taking up the most space in our warehouse, that are essentially costing us the most money to, keep in stock. And the art there would then be coming up with creative ways to promote that product across the site during your end of season sale, whether it's coming up with kind of compelling bundles, compelling like packages, like ways of encouraging, I guess, the customer to really take another look at these products to convert on them, whether it's thinking, okay, can we do a highlight on these products on various pages? Can we sort of work them into the sort orders on certain pages so that we're not, overriding totally the AI of the algorithm, but we're finding a way to add extra visibility for these products so that, again, we can hopefully sell through them and, stop spending so much money, I guess, on keeping these products in stock in the warehouse. So I think, that's just a really good example of something, two objectives. One is one that, the AI can clearly very simply support you with. And another one, which is like a very important objective also to the business that, you don't necessarily see in like a top line revenue goal, but, elsewhere in the business, it's really affecting, your profitability, or it's really affecting, your ability to kind of, I guess, function successfully as a business. And so that's, again, where the kind of merchandiser expertise, the creativity, the art kind of comes into it.
Absolutely. And also to add to your point, there's also this, as the drivers of our business, there's things that, the system might not be privy to. So for example, if you are a retailer and you have store locations and you do online, you can add those inputs into the algorithms to really drive your business forward, in terms of, maybe in-store sales, the products that are selling are different than the ones online, but you want that to have influence. So there's kind of like this marrying of their two to really drive your business objectives. I do want to switch gears here slightly and get your thoughts, Christine, on recommendations you would give to e-commerce execs and teams looking to leverage AI in their merchandising strategy.
Yeah, so I think there are two things that come to mind that I think businesses should be thinking about when they're building their strategy around AI, how to leverage it as part of merchandising. And the first one to me is the most important, and that's that there is no such thing as like a single superior AI technology. Like there's just not like one AI that's better than all the other AIs. There are a lot of things now that fall under the umbrella of AI. So there's like machine learning, neural networks, natural language processing, vector search, generative AI. And you've probably noticed they all tend to go through this hype cycle where one year all you hear about is knowledge graphs, and next year all you hear about is large language models, and so on. And in reality, all of these types of AI solve different problems in different ways. It's not like one is better than the other. And so really you should be looking for products that use them all together in a way that's going to accomplish the goals that, that the product is claiming to accomplish for you. I think it's very easy, for example, to like integrate something like GPT-4 into a product and say, oh, we use LLMs now. But it's a lot harder to really understand the underlying technology and think about ways to apply it across a bunch of different use cases, like something like generating personalized product copy, or maybe being able to create merchandising rules just from speaking to your computer, like those kinds of things. They're usually going to make a much bigger impact for your business, but they're more complicated to achieve than just like a simple integration. And honestly, there are going to be some use cases that you just don't even need the most advanced AI in order to solve the problem. One of our product managers likes to say, if you want to kill an ant, you don't need a missile, even though a missile is going to sound a lot cooler than a shoe. And I think that's like a really good mindset to have when it comes to AI. Like, don't be fooled by someone who's telling you like this is the latest and greatest if that's not really what you need to solve the problem. And then the second thing I would keep in mind is just know what you're trying to do. And that might be very obvious, but I think there are going to be a lot of SaaS products that add those AI integrations to check the box of generative AI without really taking the time to make sure that it is a profitable use case that they're developing for you. And I think we all know that there are hundreds of nice to haves in e-commerce, and we're never going to be able to have them all. So if you can really make sure that when you are adding AI to a process or to a customer experience, especially if you are paying a premium for adding that AI in, then just make sure that you really are getting the benefit from it, and that that benefit is worth being prioritized on top of like anything else that you're planning to do, instead of just like getting sucked into hype marketing.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned in the beginning of our discussion, we know that AI is a hot topic. And with that comes a lot of theories around what it will and won't do. And there's also some fear in the unknown. So, with that said, Christine, are there any myths that you would debunk as it pertains to AI?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the first one is that I guess the myth would be that AI is still like off in the future and we don't have to worry about it yet. So hopefully no one in this group is believing that one. But I think that right now AI is changing very fast. And as it's risen in the news this year, I still hear people saying things like, oh, well, 20 years ago, I was told that AI would replace my job and it still hasn't. And so I would be very nervous about falling into that mindset, because I think right now the rate of improvement that we're seeing in AI is just completely different from anything that we've seen so far. It's really not business as usual right now. So if you see an article that says like those things like, I tried to use ChatGPT for this thing and the results were terrible, so I guess actually we have nothing to worry about, I think you should be very skeptical of that. There are definitely things that these new technologies do get wrong right now, but they're going to be able to fix that much faster than they've been able to fix it in the past. So that's the first one. Expect AI to get better at just an incredible rate. And then the second myth is maybe the more obvious one, which is a lot of people are afraid that AI is going to replace their jobs. And we actually just recorded, one of our product strategists just recorded a short video on this that I think we did share on LinkedIn. You might be able to see if you go to our page. But I really like how he explained this, which is that when you look at AI, you should be thinking about it as a new way that you get to be creative and have fun. You know, instead of focusing on how you don't want things to change from the way that they work now, figure out how to find the joy in it. And that's really what's going to unlock opportunities for you and help carry you into the future so that you don't lose your job. And you do find ways to keep creating value and just keep creating a way to contribute to the business so that you don't have to worry about this fear that AI is going to replace your job. There are probably some things that AI is going to replace, but I think that humans are very persistent in finding new things to do. And I'm sure that we can find work that AI hasn't been able to do yet, that is, you know, that allows us to use AI really as a tool rather than just completely destroying the world. And if you do need a place to start playing with AI and start seeing it as something that feels fun instead of scary, I would really recommend looking up one of those free art generators and seeing what silly things you can create, or just find a task that you really hate doing and find a tool that can help. So one thing that I've done is that I really hate signing people's birthday cards. I just never have any idea what to write in them. So right now I ask ChatGPT for suggestions. I say like, hey, what should I write in my coworker's birthday card? I write like a couple facts that I know about them and I get back 5 suggestions, and I get to just take one of those and edit it. And it makes it a lot easier. And again, it makes it fun. It makes it not scary. It makes it creative. So I think that's I don't know, that would be my advice.
That's brilliant. And you just gave me a new idea on how to leverage ChatGPT. As a product marketer who is living and breathing AI innovation and uncovering more and more ways that we can drive efficiencies and greater business outcomes for our clients, can you share what the future could look like for commerce teams dipping their toe into the AI space, Christine?
Mm-hmm. So we're actually really close to making an announcement about this for Bloomreach, and our timing got slightly thrown off. I really wanted to talk about it here, so I'm not technically allowed to say that much. But there's one broad way that I think you can think about the potential of AI. And so I would just imagine in your job today that you had a junior assistant that's completely dedicated to doing whatever work you just do not want to do. So you'll still need to oversee them. You still need to make all the final decisions, but maybe you'll be able to tell them things like, give me 100 ideas for holiday campaigns that we can run this year, and tell me exactly what products are going to be included in every one of those campaigns. Or something like go pull every product that matches the look that a model is wearing in this picture and organize it into an artistic landing page for me. And then you still get to be the boss and the creative director of the strategy who comes in, and you still review and you approve things and you give guidance. But you're not doing all the grunt work that's probably kind of boring for you right now. So I think that's how you should be thinking about AI for merchandising, probably in the near future. But anytime you're thinking about what are the potentials that I should be looking at? What are the possible opportunities as we dip our toe into this space?
Wow, that's amazing. And merchandising is going to be an even more exciting space to watch as AI changes and evolves our roles and really supports practitioners to optimize and drive their business forward. So our discussion today is coming to an end. I do want to. There was a question in the forum around virtual reality and its impact on the merchandising industry. I don't know if one of you ladies want to speak to that or had any thoughts around the virtual reality for merchandising?
I can if you don't have something, Tara. I'm actually really interested to hear what you would say.
Well, I didn't. My first thought was just I definitely think it's going to be an interesting space, because I think for years as a merchandiser, there was this idea of how can we make a website mirror a store as much as possible. And we used to talk about the website being the ultimate flagship store, and how do we mirror that in-store experience online, particularly when I was working for brands that were more higher price point. And it was often, how do you drive that value or demonstrate that value on the website when the person, can't sort of go into a store and sort of get a sense of that luxury or that really high level customer service that you would get in store on the website. So I think, that was always sort of something we were always trying to emulate online. And I feel at least in my days as a merchandiser, we never really got there. Whereas it feels with the idea of virtual reality, that actually might be more of a possibility. So those were kind of my initial thoughts on it. But yeah, I don't know what you were thinking, Christine.
Yeah, I think that virtual reality, I think what I see of where it is right now is that we're very dependent on consumer adoption of all of the different tools, which is very dependent on probably the affordability of those tools is one of the biggest blockers right now. So until they're regularly using virtual reality or open to using virtual reality as part of their journey, it feels like there's very little we can do as merchandisers on the online store to do anything. But again, there's so much. Things are changing so fast right now. Even virtual reality, when you look at things I don't know, I'm not a VR expert. When you look at things like the metaverse, though, a lot of the obstacles do seem to be it's so expensive to create those experiences right now. But if you're using AI and all of a sudden you can generate tons of code and you can iterate really quickly, maybe that is going to become so much more viable in the next 5 years than we thought it was going to be able to. So I would say everything is up in the air right now. We should always stay on our toes, and we should be really listening to what customers want to do. Do they want an online store to emulate a physical store in a virtual space? Or if our canvas is infinite in the virtual space, is there a completely new kind of store experience that we can create online? And that's what virtual reality should be doing for merchandising. So I guess we'll see. We'll see, but I'm excited to see what might happen.
Absolutely. Same here, and we do know with consumers, they always want to try before they buy. They also want to experience it before they actually convert. So it's really going to be exciting to see how AI and virtual reality just kind of expands to create that more tribe experience in the digital space. So I think I don't see any other questions here. So I think that's the end of what we have for this discussion. But I do want to invite all of you to catch our exclusive Edge Summit as we deliver a 2 days of learning about the future of AI next month on August 24th and 25th. We will drop a link to the invite in the chat for those interested in attending, either in person or virtually. And all right, everyone, that's our show. First and foremost, I do want to thank my co-hosts Tara and Christine for joining the merchandising meetup. Also, thanks all of you for listening in on the meetup today. I hope you found this discussion helpful, and we will see you all in the next one. So stay in the know. Please join our LinkedIn group, the Digital Merchandising Community. And with that said, have a great rest of your day, everyone.